find me in the spot where the floppies be. Till I give it a read, keep it crisp in the sleeve. Every Tuesday night feels like Christmas Eve. Living between Wednesdays.
All right, here we go. So, first and foremost, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Konrad, from Wednesday Night Reviews. On YouTube, it's fully spelt Wednesday Night Reviews. Instagram, Twitter are varying, either at Wednesday Night Reviews or at Wednesday NR. What I do for my show is interview amazing folks like these who make indie comics. I talk about the process, what their books are about. I help with their Kickstarter campaigns. Basically everything indie comics. I'm into it. If you make an indie comic after the show, come say hi, follow me, send me a message, email me, all the things. But I'm not the important part here. They are. So let's get started. So from your left to right, we have Sean Daly. Sean, say hi.
Hi, how's it going? Welcome.
And now we have Allison.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming.
And Chris.
Hey, nice to meet you all.
And finally, Becca, who's working on a commission.
What's up?
So these are all guests I've previously had on my show for various... I think I've had some of you multiple times talking about different aspects of making comics, which is why we're here. So if during the show you have a question, put your hand up really high. You are darkly lit in there. I will try and see it, I promise. That being said, can we, again, from their left to right, talk about... what's the book that you've made? How can people get it?
Well, that's a hard one to answer because I think I've made a 7 or 8 by now over the course of 7 or 8 years. The latest one is called Illumon, 7 Rays of the Sun. That was kickstarted and self-published, so there was no one involved except for me, it's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. It's fun, and there's kind of nothing like it. That's the latest one, but the one that is maybe more easier to get is called Better Place. That was published by IDW and Top Shelf, and that's in stores kind of all over the place right now. It actually just got a French translation, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it was neat to see the book in a different language, so I'm very proud of that.
I will state right now, this man has made me cry multiple times.
Nice.
So be warned with his books. They are emotional. They hurt down here, but they're very good. So go get them.
Thank you.
And Allison.
So I'm a comics editor, which means I've kind of got my hands in a lot of different pies at one time. But a few recent books, I'm here with Shades of Fear, which is a comics anthology of psychological horror comics. We're currently nominated for the Ignatz Award for Outstanding Anthology. So any indie comics folks in the audience, please request a ballot and vote for us. This weekend, I'm also here with the team that does Dead Romans. It's an Image comic series that's about the worst defeat that the Roman army ever suffered, and we put our love story in it. So the 6th and final issue just came out, so the whole team is here at FanExpo, and you can come get it signed.
Beautiful. And Chris, tell us all about your books.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Chris Sanagan, and I'm the writer of Group of 7 Comics, which is an action-adventure historical fiction series filled with tales of daring, danger, the unknown, and the unbelievable. And you can obviously see that I've practiced that a number of times and have said it many times in interviews and across tables, because that's the pitch. But yeah, we're into book 13 now. We've been self-publishing our books for about 6 years. And yeah, they're right now the latest book is called Peregrine's Hunter's Moon, and it's about a team of high-flying spies from about 100 years ago who double as army nurses and globe-trot the world, kicking butt and saving the day. And the latest book, Hunter's Moon, takes place in the mountains of British Columbia, and it is available at our table at P07 here, along with these other fine books. Allison, you mentioned pies at the beginning. What kind of pies?
Independent pies,
Yeah.
self-published pies.
Delicious pies?
Yeah,
Okay.
self-published. Yeah, all kinds.
Love pies.
And lastly, Becca, tell us about your books.
All right. So I've written Gehenna Death Valley. It's like Scooby-Doo Goes to Hell, except there's no dog, no mystery machine, and the monsters are 100% real. I also drew the books. It was a series I started in 2014, ended in 2019. The pandemic happened, of course, and it won a Joe Shuster Award, or the Jean Day Award for independent publishing. It's all self-published. I ran a Kickstarter for the second edition, and it was fully funded successfully in 2021. I'm currently working on my new series, The Wormhole Club Tragedy. Issues 1 and 2 are out, and it's horrifying and offending readers all over the place. So.
Beauty, yeah. And so to start off the questions, first, I guess, easy question. Actually, a little bit of context first for the fine folks out here. Sean is I would say, primarily artist, but you also write.
Yeah, I just call myself a cartoonist. I feel like that's kind of the best of both worlds. Yeah.
Beautiful. Becka is kind of in the same situation where Becca's written as well as drawn other people's books. Chris is a writer, and then Allison is as she mentioned, editor. And I don't know if this is a word, but I like it, anthologist.
I'll take it. Yeah. I curate anthologies. That's true.
Wonderful. So we're going to have some really different perspectives when it comes to how to make comics. So I guess I'd love to hear from each of you, because you all have very different perspectives. What's the first step? When you have the idea hit your brain and you're like, I need to put this on paper, this needs to be real, where do you start?
I'll jump in quickly because I'm kind of going through that right now. The first step is self-doubt. And it's questioning every decision you're making and whether or not it's worth doing. The answer eventually comes around to, yeah, of course it's worth it, because it's comics. And if you want to do it, that is the first step in actually doing it. It's really hard to make comics if it's not something that you don't really want to do. So when the idea comes up, for me personally, I just write as much as I can, kind of almost in prose. It's almost like just a flow of mind, just getting everything down as far as like ideas, and it's just going to be a jumbled mess. And then you just kind of start dissecting things, cutting things out, and just kind of moving the ideas around. But the first step is just to get them out of the head into whatever format you're comfortable with. And that might just be sketching and doodling in a sketchbook. It might be taking long form notes. It might even be, if you're familiar with scripting, like literally just starting with a script, but it's just kind of about like an information dump, getting that out of your mind and somewhere that you can then start dissecting it a little bit.
Nice.
For me, that's a note in my phone.
Yeah.
When I typically come into a project a little bit later, so I won't have as much to say, but when I'm thinking about an anthology, I will just literally make a note in my phone, which is great because you have it with you all the time, so you can keep notes alive if you think of something as you're walking down the street. I think that could be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wrote the first 6 issues of Group of 7 Comics on my phone, generally on the commute to work in the morning and on the way back home, just because of the ease of technology, the idea generation, the ability to have it so handy that you can just write down a few notes and then kind of go from there. And, you know, before I even got into this, I had never written fiction before at all. I got into this late. I had written some kind of nonfiction pieces, some academic pieces, but never anything like a comic book. But I love the medium. And when you love something, you kind of maybe want to will it into existence. And what's beautiful about independent comics is you can actually do that and accomplish it, and then suddenly find yourself up talking about it on a panel at FanExpo. But yeah, so absolutely all those pieces. Agree, Sean, Allison, absolutely. But yeah, notes. Start with that. It's a good place to start.
I am a terrible daydreamer, meaning like I'm a procrastinator pretty much. And so like I'm lost in my head a lot, and that's where the bulk of my ideas start. And I just let it sit for a bit before I write or draw anything down. So for some books, the words will come faster. And for my current book 3 of Wormhole Club, the artwork is coming a lot faster. It's like I'm drawing the pages before I finish the script. I just let things organically take place, and I prefer to write it down on my iPad or on the computer, or I'll even be old school and have a notebook on me.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Interesting. So far, does anyone have questions about making comics? Go for it. So just a quickly sort of summarize for the folks that maybe didn't hear it. So we have a writer who's got your script sounds like mostly done or completed. You've set aside some money for an artist, and you're just wondering sort of what's the next step? How do you go from having a little cash and a script to how do you get a book made, right?
Right. So it almost sounds like distribution methods. Yeah. Sorry, Allison. Cool.
I can jump in. I would say if you've got the money put aside, because I think that's the biggest hurdle for a lot of people, especially writers. I think that the webcomic route is a really strong one because a lot of right now comics are very democratized in terms of being able to like produce and distribute on your own, which is great, but it also means that there's so much information out there. So your options are kind of to print something and then distribute it at conventions like this, but you can kind of reach more eyes if you put it online. Webtoon and Tapas can be really good, but I think their audiences are looking for a pretty specific kind of story. So have a look at what's popular, like on their main pages. And if you think, especially, you know, if it's like a supernatural romance, for example, easy to get eyes on it, but anything else can be a little bit tougher. So a lot of people will cross post. So you can host, like WordPress, for example, has a template for webcomics. So you can pay for hosting, like for a URL essentially, use WordPress, put your comic there, and then cross-post on Tapas or Webtoon to get more eyes onto it. And then use social media, like use your Instagram, use wherever we all land when Twitter dies. But just trying to get your work out that way. That way you can get some more eyes on it. And then if you do want to print it later, you'll have a more of a built-in audience than trying to approach it on your own. So I think if webcomics are like financially an option for you, I do think that that's can be the best way. And then it can also lead to more work later on, because as an editor, when I'm looking for people to work with either for an anthology or for like something more long-term, what matters most to me is seeing you can finish things. So for you and your artist, just saying like, here's what I make. That's a huge portfolio piece for you down the line. So I do think that that's a really good option. But I would say unless your work is very targeted to those hosting websites, audiences and demographics, you're probably better off to just host it on your own website and then maybe cross post. But I would just have your own website for it.
Yeah, I actually host all of my own comics on my website in both single page format where somebody can just scroll down and read the whole thing, or via like a PDF download where they can just download the entire thing all at once. Obviously no DRM or anything like that. And so far that's been successful. That's been working just fine. But the comics that I make aren't really suitable for the webcomic format. They rely on a page turn, or it's hard to just lay them all out as single panels the way webcomics are often done. So it's a little different, but you have a lot of options, which is excellent.
Yeah, I absolutely. One of the things that we've found, and I think it's a really great question, because you are trying to be also kind of strategic about it in the sense where it's like there's multiple avenues, right? And you're trying to figure out what works for you, what works for your process, what works for the product, the audience, all these things. And there's and the good thing is that we have all these tools at our disposal, generally to like try them out and see what works. And so what we found, like for example, we put our first 8 pages online on our website of like book 1 because we didn't know where else to start, and like put them online. And originally the concept was we're just going to do a webcomic because we're just figuring this out for the first time, and like 2 friends getting together doing this, right? And then we were at shows and we realized, oh, we still love the tangible print copy too. We love it. There's a lot of interest in the audience about it. So then we started exploring those avenues. But one thing that we kind of have done to merge those two, which we found to be really successful for us, is we will put out once a year or so, we'll do an Instagram comic where we will do 3 panels a day, under 15 minutes per panel. We don't quite know where the story's going. It's a bit of a choose your own adventure. But every day the artist and I talk about what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. So it's a fun creative exercise for us to do. Like much different than the edited script going back and forth between the two of us over a longer month process. But we get 3 panels out, so you get a comic out a day, or three comics out a day. Definitely different, like bit more of a raw comic. But at the end of the month, we have 90 panels. and then we've got a full story that we've done over the 30 days, and then we package that up, reformat it, and print it in like a limited run, and have them at our shows. So it's one of those things that you can kind of bridge a little bit of like getting your workout online and then just recollecting it as well. And there's plenty of print options to do that, to then have a physical product if you want to say hand it to retailers, hand it to interested people, just hand it out, whatever you want to get to. There are mechanisms to kind of just like bridge those two pieces.
I just host all my comics on my website. That's how I started. And then I just cross post anywhere, usually on social media. And I'm fortunate enough in my hometown, the printer I use is just a short drive where I am. And so he's printed all of my floppies, all of my trade paperbacks. Yeah, I just found like I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning. So I just started going to shows like FanExpo and TCAF and just saw what people were doing, tried it out, see what worked and what didn't work. And just went with it and built an audience through those places. And yeah, and I'm also big into like the DIY culture. So it's and besides FanExpo, I also participate in places like the punk rock flea markets and just seeing what works there and what people respond to. And the reason I host on my own website is because I like to experiment when I write and draw whatever, and that way I'm not trapped by certain genres that are popular in places like tapas or webtoons. And it's been more rewarding for me creatively and just explore what I'm making. So, yeah.
I love it. I will get to you, all three of you, in just a second. I have an important question. You've mentioned taking your comic, whether you're posting on a website or posting on Instagram, and basically creating it and putting it out there for free. An obvious question that jumps to mind is, well, you've put your comic out there for free. Why would anyone buy it? And yet, you're all successful. Can you talk about why it's a good thing to put it out there, the benefits of it, and just sort of why you've chosen to do it?
Well, the very first comic that I ever did, it was in 2015, and it was just all put online for free because I had no audience. And I mean, if you don't have an audience, the best thing you can do is kind of like just get it out there, and then you build that audience. Even today, I give stuff out for free, though. That hasn't changed. And I think it's because there are things that are more valuable than the idea of getting something for free. For example, getting something signed is more valuable than getting something for free. So I don't know. I'm kind of a big believer in, like, if you're making comics, don't be afraid to just like give them out. Obviously, you want to make money off of that, but especially when you're first starting out, there's a lot of value in free things, which sounds weird. It sounds like it doesn't work, but like I promise you, it does. Even if like what I first did was I went to the library and I just printed out minis, like, you know, the self-printed, like ash cans, stapling yourself at home and stuff. Those you could print off like a 10-page comic for like maybe $1.50. So I mean, you get 20, 30 of those printed and you hand those out. That's awesome. But even giving stuff away for free online, like just making everything available to read for free, and then saying, if you liked this and if you would like to buy this, like, here you go. Here's an option for paying for it after you've read it, to kind of try before you buy, but in like the ultimate way, I guess. And I don't know, I think it works great, because I also appreciate when artists, I don't know if you guys are the same, but like if an artist is saying like, or a comic creator, I should say, is just showing everything that they're doing for free, and they're like, here, you can like read this and consume it, and then if you like it, like, here I am, like, here's an option to pay me for it. I just think it works great, and I consume a lot of stuff myself that way as well.
Yeah, it's about building relationships, I think. It's no different than getting something from the library. You might, if you love it, then you'll want your own copy. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with both of what you're saying. It's interesting because by evidence of us all in this room together, there is a lot of love and interest in independent comics, and there's a lot of, just to your point, the relationship piece that gets formed over time, and that becomes a very real thing. It's like so much so that when we put a new book up, whether it's on a Kickstarter type platform or we've got a new book at our table and we share that information, like we see our friends come back and yeah, they're fans, sure, but they become friends and they come and support you, and we're doing the same too. So it is a bit of a community piece too, I think, involved in that, and it's real too. I think the community piece is very real, and it can be very tangible too.
Echoing everyone's comments on that.
Sean, you're too good at answering questions.
Oh, sorry. There's actually an article out there that it's been on the internet for like, I remember reading this like 10 years ago, and I look it up every once in a while. It's called 8 Generative Values Better Than Free. And it just breaks down all of these ideas that you can do that are it's just things that are like more important than, somebody paying for something. And the things that, the values that something that physical that you might have that you're, giving away, that like add-ons and stuff like that, things that, you could give away a book for free. But if you want like, and I don't do this so much, but this is just an example, like a signature and a bookmark and all of this other stuff. It's like, you can create value with all of that stuff, that people might pay for that they wouldn't have if, that wasn't there. Yeah, it's a really good article, though. Highly recommended.
Yeah, value is not defined by commerce, I think. Is
Yeah, exactly.
what we're getting at.
Thank you.
Beautiful. We had some questions earlier. I'll start with you in the glasses, and then we'll come to yellow shirt. I'm gonna love this. I love this question, so thank you for asking.
Becca, you have an amazing style. So were you interested in?
Thank you. To start with, I am not consistent with my style. I allow my work to evolve over time, just because I'm like chronically obsessed with improving my work over time, and because wherever the reason I love shows like FanExpo and other comic events is that I learned something new from other artists. Like I was at FanExpo Boston a couple weeks ago, and I was mind blown. I sat next to Casey Parsons, phenomenal artist, and he was using crayons for his commissions. Not Crayola, but I just never thought that would be a possibility. So I just like to take bits and pieces from other artists, whether I'm sitting next to them or reading a book, and I'm like, I want to try this, and just add it to my art style. It's just you're building, I don't know, resume. I don't know if that makes sense, but you're building your style as you go along over time. Like it never ends, pretty much. And be comfortable being uncomfortable during the process.
I'm not an artist, but Emily Carroll, who's we all know like a phenomenal artist, once joked that like she doesn't use perspective in her work, and she's like found a way to work that she doesn't like using perspective. And I think a lot of artists have said that your style is like defined by the shortcuts you take a lot of the time. So if there's something like focusing on the stuff that you do like to draw and obviously making sure that you're maintaining what you need to be able to like tell a story effectively and communicate effectively. But being able to like really focus on the things you love drawing and making drawing fun. Like I think that's a really key part to developing a style, because you want to be able to be sustainable with it. And I think as Becca says, that can continue to develop, but focusing on making drawing fun for yourself is more important, I think, than saying like, this is how I draw eyes or something like that.
Yeah, and like make mistakes. I feel like learning from your mistakes is the best way to figure out your style. I mean, my style has changed every year for like 8 years. When I first started drawing comics, I was trying to draw like one of my favorite cartoonists, Jeff Lemire, because his work is just beautiful, and it really resonated with me. And so I tried to mimic that a lot, and you never do it the way that they do, right? Like they're them for a reason. And then that went into Akira Toriyama and anime and manga influence, and it became this weird blend of the two. So emulate the cartoonists and the artists that you like, and try to draw in their style. There's nothing wrong with that. Eventually, all of your mistakes and your combinations of influences are going to turn into something unique. People stop by my table and they say, "Oh, I like your style," and I'm like, what style? Like I don't know what this is. It doesn't seem like anything to me. And I think once you feel like that, then you're onto something.
Beautiful. Couldn't have said it better myself. Actually, Sean came on my show and we got very in-depth about that. So yes, go check out Sean's books. They're at his table. Illuman is here. Do you have copies of Better Place?
No, I don't. Better Place was through a publisher, and when you work with a publisher, you get like 5 books, and then you have to start buying them. So I don't have any.
Fair. Yellow shirt, you're up. So for the question for everyone, when it comes to, say, you've got your comic done, or if you're a writer, you've got it wrote or written, and you want to finish it off, how can you use crowdfunding, given its time-sensitive nature? For those of you who don't know, currently the most popular ones for comics are Kickstarter, which is typically 30 days, or Crowdfunder, which Chris has used. So guys, talk about your use of the platforms. Go for it.
Well, I'm fresh off one, a Kickstarter, and I'm hopping into another one next month. So marketing is mostly done on like social media. Like that's kind of the best way you can do it. Is just, I know it's like, it kind of sucks.
Thanks.
I think we all, I'm sorry, but like we all want to use it less, I feel like, but you have to use it more if you want to actually market this stuff. But I feel like if you treat that aspect, like using social media as a job, it becomes way easier and way less stressful than using it for like personal reasons. So when I'm posting about the books that I'm doing, or anything actually, it's only art. I don't really post much about like my life and the things that I do. It's usually the stuff I'm working on. And using it like that has saved me a lot of like mental stress and anxiety and stuff like that. But I feel like that's the best way. And stuff like this, podcasts, talking to people about the things that you're doing is like one of the best ways to do it as well. Like just talking with people. But it's all online. It's all online. Yeah, you guys use social media as well.
Oh, yeah.
A lot. Yeah.
I've done 7, I think, Kickstarters, and it's all of social media. You can use, there are mechanics so that you can see where clicks come from backers, and it's all socials. You can do podcasts, you can do like interviews with media and that kind of thing, but the clicks are going to come from socials always. If you decide to do interviews and that kind of thing, I'd say be really targeted with it. Like the way to get an interviewer onto a podcast is to give them content. You're saying like, here's some exclusive art we're not giving to anyone else. Do a feature on us. But the benefit of that is then you have something to post about. I would also say, don't be afraid of annoying people. I think a lot of people get really like self-conscious about posting too much. And that can get annoying if your social media is only ever when you're crowdfunding and you never post ever again. But if you're using it like a normal person most of the time, and then you're just annoying for a month, people understand that. And I think that you'll still get people being like, oh, why haven't I heard about this? And you'll be like, I've been posting every day. So
Yes.
Don't be afraid of that. It's super normal. But you just got to get out there and like scream as much as you can. And I would say like plan as many art assets as you can, so you're not just posting the same image all the time. So whether it's panels from the comic, you render special Kickstarter materials for the comic, whatever it is, but just if you can get a variety of imagery that you're using regularly throughout the month, it makes people less likely to scroll past if they're seeing the same picture all the time.
When I was saying earlier, get used to being uncomfortable. That's one part. Like being self-conscious, posting all the time on social media was my big hang up, but you have to work past that. And then after, as Allison said, people understand.
Yeah, for sure. There's when you're leveraging these technologies, you've got to do, I think, again, you've got to kind of think a bit more about the data points that come with them, because there is data that these platforms provide you with in terms of Allison saying like where the clicks are coming from, so you can then pivot your approach depending on what's happening. So I used a platform called Crowdfunder, which is, again, it's a crowdfunding platform. And one thing I really liked about it, aside from the fact it didn't take any fees, which is really cool, our percentage, is that it provides you with this dashboard of data points. And part of their advice is, suggesting to creators, like, there's like in the first week, it's hot and heavy, might be a bit of a lull, but then it like picks up the last few days of your campaign because people have been like seeing the posts. and maybe they don't act, and then they kind of say 3 days left, and then they start acting, right? So there's that. So like leverage the tools, like the tools are there, the product suites are there. So try to leverage that. The other thing I'd say is the social media thing is real. You are fighting against an algorithm. So that is also real in the sense where you may think that I've got 1,000 followers, I'm hitting 1,000 eyes every time. That's just not true. I think as we doom scroll every day, we can 100% see things that maybe from feeds we didn't see the day before. Like, but I followed this feed the day before. How am I not seeing this yesterday? Or how am I not seeing Becca's post? I just saw Becca's post, or wherever it happens to be. So that's just something to keep in mind, I guess, as, you know, because there is no silver bullet for that. It's a slog. It is a grind. But yeah, after the 30 or 45 days, I generally think there's an understanding amongst your audience that this is something that you are passionate about and trying to do and trying to accomplish. And so they don't mind every day or every second or third day seeing, hey, FYI, this is happening. Hey, do you mind supporting the Kickstarter? Hey, this is my new book, whatever it happens to be.
Sorry, 2 other points I thought of really quickly. One, don't get demoralized by what they call the bathtub, which is you get all your posts on like the first 2 days, and then it goes like this, and you get nothing for 2 weeks, and then you get all your money again at the end. My last Kickstarter, we made about $36,000 in the last 3 days of the campaign. Like Monday, I was preparing for it not to work, and by Thursday, I was scrambling to find stretch goals. So that happens. Also, the best way actually, because again, social media is a dumpster fire right now. Newsletters are really going up in popularity, as you've probably noticed. And if you have one or your friends have one, that's a much more effective way at getting people interested, because if someone subscribed to your newsletter, they're already interested in what you have to say. So you or your friends with newsletters, that is like one of the most effective ways to reach an audience that's actually going to listen.
And it's much more of like it can be much more of a personal touch to the newsletter, is
exactly.
that you have, people have signed up or whatever they've done. And so, you know, it's and it can be long form too, right? So you're not necessarily beholden to whatever the character limits are of whatever platform you're using at the same time. And it goes directly to those people. It is much more of a focused, intentional, personal message, which I think resonates.
Yes.
Oh
Oh, yeah. And one thing I'll add, as the podcaster, as the person that you will likely reach out to, when it comes to people that have asked me, you know, like they're baby fresh at this, they've never done it before, they're just super passionate, which I love. One of my biggest tips that I tell them is post every day, be annoying. You need to be your own cheerleader. Like no one cares about your book until you put it in front of them and they see it and they go, oh, this thing kicks. But there's children here. So just be annoying, post every day. Personally, like I follow all of these people. I love it when I see progress shots. When you do your Instagram comic, I love that. So just give people stuff to see, even if it's, I don't know, Sean who does Twitch, you go there and draw all the time. You'll sit there and go at the end of it and go, this is what I worked on today. And it's the coolest thing. So yeah, don't be afraid to be annoying, post a lot. And then, I see you down there. I see you giving me the eye. Yeah, you, Keenan. He's my handler. He makes sure I'm on time, and he gives me attitude. He's sassy. Question. Go for it.
I think it's effective because, like we were saying, like giving stuff away for free, there's no harm in that, and I don't consider that like a loss in sales at all. Yeah. So I mean, as long as you don't and you're comfortable with that, I think this is a great idea. I love the idea of one QR code, just like, you know, here, have this for free. And if you like it, scan the other one. It's simple. It seems effective. I like it. Right.
I think that's a pretty common approach. People give like half for free. Yeah, that's it definitely has worked in the past. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good one. You say you hook them with the first part of the story, and then they have to buy the rest.
For the folks out there, so you can hear it. The comic is called So-Called Living. The question was, so he's giving out these business cards. The top QR code gives you issue 1 for free. The bottom QR code gets you to the campaign, in which you will get issues 1 and 2. And he's wondering if it'll be effective because you're giving it half for free. Personally, yes. They know better than I do, and if Allison says yes, then yes.
I think the QR code thing is really important, and I think it's really funny because I thought QR codes were like dead 5 years ago, right?
They're back, baby.
Right. Well, I know they're back. I mean, QR code apparently just waited its time, waiting its time to emerge. But so now all our cards, all our products of that nature have our QR code. Goes to our website or goes to something else we want to direct people right to online. I think having that on a product, on a promotional piece, whatever happens to be, is a really good move. I just find it hilarious because it seemed like they died, and now they're like, oh no, that's the way to do it. So anyway, yeah, no, it's good. Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's just right. Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Go for it. So the question being, when you're making a trilogy, she's asking, do you start with I've just made one book, or do you have sort of the trilogy planned out when you start executing it?
All my books are like one-offs, so I'm bad at answering that one. Yeah.
I think it can be really beneficial to have an idea of what you want to do. If I'm helping someone develop a story that's going to be multiple installments, it's good to have an outline. So you have an idea of kind of the major story beats for the whole story, and then you can break it down and just do book one. And then maybe things will change later on, but you might have ideas for things that you'll plant in book one that might come up later on. So I think it's a really good idea to have a kind of a roadmap for yourself of where the whole story is going to go. And then you can make the first book, and then at least you have a bit of an idea of where the later one's going to go. Does that make sense?
So for my book, Gehenna, there was a lot of material I cut out for it, and I just thought, well, it's gone, whatever. And this is also why I take notes, handwritten notes, because now I'm like, oh, I have enough material for possibly another book in the, like a prequel or something. So it's like, be open to, for changes like that, because you could originally be like, oh, this is contained, and then you're like, maybe not, and it's more fun that way. So my approach is I start small at first, and then if it organically builds, let it yeah just let it do its own thing.
Go for it.
Read as many comics as possible. I think we're all a little bit self-taught to some extent. There are schools you can go to if you want to learn like drawing, but there's stuff online. There's books you can learn. I think everybody learns in a different way. And a degree or something isn't really going to get you anywhere. If you want to work in editorial for a publisher, then you should go to publishing school. But otherwise, you can totally learn on your own. I think it's just reading as much and as many different kinds of things as possible is a really valuable place to start.
And I'd also suggest too, like informal education, like doing these things, like is like going to shows and just being curious about the entire industry and process is in itself a massive education. I have no formal training in anything comics related or even writing. I'm university, but like nothing specifically for this thing. But one thing that has really helped us out as a team and as a creative partnership and delivering product is we started going to shows with and just asking, talking to creators, being respectful, but talking to creators, going to panels, finding out who does printing, like all those pieces. Like just be curious about the entire industry, the entire process, and that to us has been the big educational component. Just because that set us up for putting us in a position to actually deliver on putting out a product is doing these things. Like we've been to so many CAFs, so many shows, basically in the GTA, just with our ears open and just being open to hearing from creators and learning and then going from there.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I went to school for music and did that for like 7
that's
years.
worth a lot, man.
Is it?
Yeah, because you're about to there comes the guitar.
Well, hey, I could.
I know
could do
it's
that, I
behind.
guess.
I
All
brought
right.
it up for you.
Oh no, really?
I did not.
Yeah, it's so anyone can do it. Is my takeaway. Anyone.
Yeah, I just use the internet and books from the library. I used to work in the library. So I literally read in a How to Draw Comics book, oh, you can ask an artist if they're looking for an assistant. Mind you, this book was from like 2004. It might, I don't know if that still applies, but I tried it at TCAF and I was like, I know how to use Adobe Photoshop. do you need help? And someone did need help, so I started out color flatting for various artists. So that's basically coloring assistant work, and just learn what I could from various people like Chip Zdarsky, multiple artists from Raid Studio. Got a lot of education from there, and going to Comic Cons and TCAF and the internet too. So yeah, I didn't go to school for anything. It was just learning as I went and getting asking a lot of questions. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions as long as you're respectful, and don't be afraid to ask for help, like how to do something on Photoshop, and you can learn a lot from various people.
Very fair, very true. We have time for one last question. Go for it. So the question being, as we've talked a lot about social media, digital distribution, sort of what is the potential future for print media, and if that's frankly still a thing. In my heart of hearts, always. I will always take a printed book over everything else, just because I can meet these people and get signatures and all that kind of stuff. But what do you guys think?
Well, I actually have a question for everyone here that might help. Does anybody have any digital only books that you also don't have in print or aren't planning on printing?
No.
No, I was gonna say we have out of print books,
right?
But
yes,
that
I
one-
have
we
those.
will
for sure, which is great.
out of print material. But the plan is at some point to put it back
print
into.
it,
Yeah,
right,
you're right.
yeah.
No, you're right.
I still like buying physical media. I mean, we've seen vinyl come back, right? So just
That's
things
true.
come and go. I think, not that I'm good with predicting the future, but I think we'll be fine. It all works out in the end, and things go in cycles.
It's interesting because, like as I was saying before, like when we started with this idea, where let's put some comics on the web and see where it goes, and really because there was no print version in our heads. This is like 2017, 2016. We were just assuming, incorrectly, I think, but assuming that that's where people were. That's where the traffic was, the webtoons. That's where things were. Everything's happening on the web. And then we went to a panel. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. Went to a panel at TCAF and heard from some creators talking about the tangibility of the product and how it just like spoke to them and meant a lot to them. And I know that's not everyone's personal experience or preference, but it gave us pause to kind of rethink our approach, and immediately went to go print a copy. And then from that point, we knew that's what we wanted to put out, because as other folks have said, like there's a lot of emotion invested in the physical product. Vinyl's come back, all these things that have happened. And so it was very much a real thing again. It was an attainable thing, and it was like an achievable thing, when originally our first impressions were it's web. But the reality was actually the exact opposite. The web is still there, and there's audiences for both, and often they overlap. And so you will have here's the free comic. Oh, now I'm going to buy a copy. It's like, oh, and that person has a free copy of it or a digital copy of it. That doesn't matter. They want to support the community. They want to support art. They want to support creation. And that's very evident in this space.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, for one thing, I think we're running out of time. If anyone has questions they didn't get to ask, I'm happy to answer them in the hallway or at my table, so feel free to come by. I'm going to be a bit of a Debbie Downer because you asked about starting with print. I think you can, especially if you're looking at something that's shorter form or is black and white or something like that. Because you can go to festivals, you can go to these sorts of events, and that's great. If you're looking at something that's longer or that is going to be using really heavy color, printing is really expensive right now. And part of what we're saying requires disposable income, and not everyone has that in the same way. So while I love print, I love buying things in print, I love zines and that kind of stuff, I also know that I couldn't have paid to print a lot of my books by myself. It wouldn't have been an option if I couldn't do crowdfunding. And so if you're looking to reach a wide audience, if you want something that's in really vivid colors, that's really 1,000 pages long, if that's the kind of books you want to make, then I don't think starting with print is your best bet, just because you're going to have to put so much cost up front. So it depends a lot, I think, on what your project is and what its goals are, whether like print immediately is an option. As I agree, like print's not going anywhere. People love it, but it is costing more right now to get paper, put ink on paper, and then send it to people. Like mail in Canada is insane.
I was going to say the shipping.
And storage, like that all costs money. Yeah. And so those are all things to consider. And so if you're doing like a 15-page zine and you can carry 500 of those in your apartment, that's fine. But if you're making a 200-page anthology that's in full color, that just looks very different in terms of cost. So I would say those are things to really consider when you're making that decision. And that's why we're starting online can be beneficial, because you can build an audience that can help you crowdfund those costs.
Yeah, and if you really want to eventually go into print, putting everything online first is great advertisement for you to eventually get that. That's what I did with my first book. I put everything online for free, and then once people had read it over the course of 6-7 months, I said, okay, if you want this on your shelf, here's a Kickstarter. And it was the first one I ever did, and I was terrified, but people were like, oh, I saw this online, and that was the marketing for it, was them having read it first. So yeah, digital might be a stepping stone to get to print.
Awesome. Yeah, folks, thank you so much for the four of you for coming on to the show and talking to these fine people. And to the fine people, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last thing, we are definitely out of time. From left to right, say your name, your most recent book, and the table where people can find you.
My name's sorry.
My name is Sean Daly. I am at P04, and my most recent book is Illumon, which is kind of a violent take on Pokemon crossed with Dragon Ball Z. It's very weird, and I love it.
My name's Allison O'Toole. I'm at P143, or as I say, come find me in the hallway in the next few minutes. My most recent book, I'll say, Shades of Fear, psychological horror comics.
My name is Chris Sanagan. I'm at table P07, and our latest book is called Peregrine's Hunter's Moon, action adventure historical fiction.
I'm Becca. My table is P18A. I'm right next to Slam Press Tomes. So my latest book is the Wormhole Club Tragedy. I just have issues 1 and 2. I also have the Gehenna Death Valley trades for my Kickstarter. And we're also promoting our upcoming book, Frankenstein Visions. So come check us out.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2? Collector problems, cliffhangers, mysteries. You need answers. When did Batman become Green Lantern? I get it. True believer, not lying. Always up for an awesome summer crossover tie-in. High flying, full color or black and white. Splash pages, flashbacks. Whet your appetite with new costumes, team ups, first loves, first appearances.